School board, teachers, slightly below at 5%. Schools are well maintained. Schools are well maintained regarding grounds, again, slightly below their average. Parents, the school system manages finances, resources responsibly. You can see parents, there's a big difference between what their baseline score is and what they're giving credit on that particular question. And there's obviously a big difference in that one as well between how they score and teachers score on that one. So, takeaways, some bottom lines. I try to come away with 3 things to think about as you leave. Number 1, participation went up. Your return rate improved. The process was smoother. You were more integrated into your strategic plan, which ultimately should help you going down the line. So, more parents participated. I think that will only improve in time, particularly if they see you take things you learn and work on them. Overall feedback was still positive. It was positive last year. I think everybody walked away saying, that was better based on where you had been in the past and where you were at this time last year. And everybody said, wow, that's better. And it got a little better. So some steps were made going in the right direction, obviously. And I think, as I said, no Fs. Nobody gave an F. That's a lot of parents out there. There are a lot of parents out there that think that nobody put an F in. And I think the other thing I would walk away from here saying is there's some opportunity to explore. I wouldn't say you overreact to those things, but explore some differences between the parents and the teachers and where there may need to be some alignment with teachers understanding how parents feel and parents understanding how some teachers feel about some things, because there was some differences there. Students being different, again, it doesn't surprise me as much. Parents being different, there's some opportunity to work on some of those things.
Jim, I want to thank you and New South really for putting up with us over the course of that process. You really bring a science to this. I mean, as you said, it's a tremendous amount of questions, and I really like the way it's been realigned to our strategic process, and really helps us to kind of bring some sense and direction to what is a lot of questions.
There's a lot of information here, and I think the process, again, from y'all saying that works smoothly this year.
We'll
Thank you for that presentation. Do we have questions or comments from the board first?
If I understood this slide correctly, the 21% in the finances regarding the board, is that saying that the parents in our community are very concerned about the financial state of the school system? The 21% in the lower left there, I just want to make sure that I understand that correctly. That was the highest percentage that I saw in the negative.
Yeah, well, there may be other, but important to understand what that chart is. That chart is simply to compare, the goal is to compare parents, teachers, students. There may be other scores, other questions that scored actually, now I know there are, other questions that parents scored lower than that question. That was the widest difference between their baseline score and their, that particular question. There are other questions that survey parents scored lower. That one I think was 63, if I recall correctly, it was 63%, saying they agreed with that, which is a positive statement, so agreement is good. So that means 37% didn't agree. Now, if you go back to our school, our scale, that means you got.
A portion of those were neutral.
Correct. Some of those would be neutral. That's correct. Some of those would be in the neutral category. Go back to our scale. That 63 agreement would put you in a D category, if you will, on that particular question. So it is not the worst question on the survey. It does show that there's room for improvement between what parents think of the system overall and what they think on that particular point. That was a long answer to answer your question.
That just is concerning. I mean, I know that's where we are as an economy. I understand that, but I mean, obviously, I mean, why do we do surveys if we don't do anything with the information? You know what I'm saying? And that just kind of jumped out at me. And I want to make sure that I understood that parents feel like that we as a board and as a school system are not necessarily where we need to be.
The question was, the school system manages its finances and resources responsibly. And 63% of parents agreed with that statement. 37% fell short of agreement. They could have said, I'm neutral, which may mean I really don't know. And then some percent scored in the bottom end of that scale. I'm sure some did. So, yes, it would be one of the higher scores that would be something.
How did
to look
that
at.
one rate, at least the previous year, do you remember, do you recall?
We can find out easily. But it also didn't go into that category of those questions that were highly correlated, that were focus questions either. It wasn't in that batch.
Were teachers asked that same question?
Yes, and they were 5% below their baseline. They were at 86 though, so they were, almost 9 out of 10 teachers said, yeah, they're managing the resources responsibly.
I remember right too, they were asked the question relative to their school and relative to the system.
So we could assume then that we as a board, and it may be what Ms. Crane was hitting on tonight, there's probably a lot of people in our community that really don't understand our financial situation, possibly. And teachers that are here in the school system that live it and breathe it every day, they know the areas that we're making cutbacks and they know the conservative approaches that we're taking.
Teachers certainly see you as more financially responsible, without question, than parents do. And there is definitely room for improvement with parents.
Because they're more knowledgeable, correct?
Because the teachers are more knowledgeable?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're
Oh,
in our
yeah.
system.
They're here every day, they know what's going on.
So we've got to do a better job of educating our community as to our financial state.
Your financial state and what you're doing to address that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Following up on what Ms. Frazier was asking, do you have handy there the percentage or the number of people who said to this responsible, is the board being responsible steward of its finances? The people who said yes were 63, is that right?
People who agreed with the
Who
statement.
agreed with that statement,
Somewhere-
and then,
somewhere was wrong.
and then what percent or number was neutral and what percent or number was negative, disagreed?
You bring a teeny sliver on top of yellow, which blue was A, gold was B, green was C, yellow was D, and red was F. There was no red this year. It was a tiny little bit of yellow, which was a D. It was, that was the 3%.
It was impossible to see what that 3% was.
Yeah, there was no 3 there because the little box was so tiny, we couldn't get 3 in.
Okay.
Well, it appears that it would be significant in neutral responses.
It will.
I think the nature of the question a lot of times will, lend itself to more neutrals. For example, a specific extracurricular, at least in my mind, seems like a lot of times you'll have a lot of neutrals because they don't have a direct experience with that. So, you know, I think in my mind, I don't want to.
No, you're correct. And on some questions, there's a not applicable, they can click and say, doesn't matter, but that, some of those extracurriculars are that. What one parent thinks about cheerleading that no kids involved in, they can check that box, that I don't know, as opposed to the neutral box, which is supposed to mean, the neutral box is supposed to mean, you know, it's not good, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's in the middle.
And that's the point I was trying to make, is that teachers obviously are gonna be more positive because they
Not
live and breathe it
necessarily.
every day. Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, there are questions. over
Nice
there.
other questions
Teachers
on
that I
there.
know are very nice and very excited to be in the school system. But then on the other hand, you could assume too, that in the parents, there may be some that just don't care. Right?
On a particular question, yes, but in general, this 40% cares or they wouldn't have gotten the survey.
Okay.
There's another 60% out there that to some degree said, I don't want to say that other 60%.
Right, or it doesn't, that wasn't.
I didn't have time today,
Okay.
tomorrow or next week or.
It doesn't interest them. That was probably not the right thing to say.
I mean, how would you characterize the response rate? I mean, I think one of the initial slides was very positive. It was better. The margin of error was reduced very much.
Yeah, the response rate, I would categorize it in, if I had my 5-point scale at about a 4. I mean, it can get better. It can get better. It can get up, best response we've ever seen was 100%. That was once in 20 years.
Is that 97 questions?
If I 97 questions, we won thousands of parents. Yeah, so, but yeah, can it get to 50%? I think it can. I think you get further up. As parents get used to doing it over time, and as communication around it improves, and email addresses improve, and fewer parents block. And blocking, and some of that 60%, I'm sure got caught with spam filter. There's just no way around it. But that's why you also put it on the web. That's why you also do robocalls out to say, hey, it's coming. So if a parent didn't get it, they can call it, and many did call us and say, hey, I didn't get it, send me the link, and we'll just write them to send them the link and respond to it.
Your email notification to parents, what percentage of the parents would you have an email address for?
We don't, obviously, we don't have it, y'all have it, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, our goal was 100%.
Sure.
And we went through a pretty excruciating process to get those. I think I was the principal of that. But the goal was 100%. I think we got pretty close. You cannot equate our enrollment to, I mean, I think the total was 8,000. We got 12,000, almost 13,000 students. So when you siblings and things of that nature, it gets down significantly. But the goal was 100%, and we hope to clean that process up even better for next year.
Do you recall, were we in the 90s or the 80s?
In terms of, I
having
don't.
email addresses?
I don't. I think we thought we had all of them.
We thought we had all of them, and when we went out there, what happened was people would enter an email address in the box and they'd put, this is at my office, this is my home, you know, to where we couldn't pick it up and read it. And so then we turned to the schools and had the schools provide lists. Some schools had very good lists that we could use and tap into their system, other schools didn't. Going through online registration this year, we have tightened up the parameters of what can go in that email address box. And our goal is to get better, that data better, and so that we can penetrate, you know, appropriately. It's very hard to correlate. It would have taken a lot of manpower to correlate how many we actually got versus how many households we have. That's why we then turned to not only sending out what we had, but sending out the instructions over the school messenger calls, you know, information to the parents. That's why we hit those other sources of communication with our parents. I think every parent had the opportunity to know that the survey was out there, which is what the ultimate goal is.
Sure.
And if they called our office and said, I don't have the ability to get online at all, we would even walk them through the survey and us enter their responses and do it, call it a telephone survey, but they call us. We're not calling them to do it, but we want them to complete it.
Sure.
Every one of them we